Good morning. Today is the 12th day of Iyar, the 20th of May. And we're going to look at the second reading of Parshat Behar. And we're continuing with things that are, in general, related to transactions. And in this case, in the second reading, we're going to talk about two types of prohibitions that are related to transactions. The one type of transaction is a business transaction, one that is monetary. The other type is what today is called in psychology transactional analysis or transactional psychology, which governs the relationships between people and the way in which we communicate with one another. So let's look at these two. I'm going to be reading from Leviticus 25:14, and here we see that it says, when you sell something to your fellow Jew or buy something from your fellow Jew, you must not cheat one another. This obviously is a prohibition against cheating during a business transaction, any kind of purchase or sale. You must purchase it from your fellow Jew according to the number of years, since he must sell you according to the number of years. So this seems to be a little disconnected, but the Torah here was talking about the Jubilee year, and as we'll see today and tomorrow, the land of Israel was divided among the families that came into it during the time of Joshua, and each family received a parcel of land, and that parcel is theirs in perpetuity, meaning they can't sell it to someone else. It always returns back to them on the Jubilee year. Jubilee means 50. So every 50 years, every 7 cycles of the sabbatical, all the land would return back to its original owners. The only type of land, we could say, not really land, but the only type of property, real estate, that would not return is real estate that was in a town surrounded by a wall. Those have different regulations concerning them, and many of them can be sold in perpetuity. Then the Torah adds in verse 17, none of you may taunt your fellow Jew. That's how he translated it here. In other words, do not cheat each other. It uses the same word again, which is cheat. He translated it here as taunt because the meaning here is different. Because here it's talking about deceiving someone or misleading them with your words. Meaning you're not cheating them by not paying the right price, but here it's any kind of misleading speech that a person might do. This also means, for instance, not insulting someone, because that's also considered to be a type of speech that is forbidden. Now that we have this together, and the end of the verse 17 is, you must fear Havaya, your God. You should fear your God, for I am Havaya, your God. Now, these two mentions of not cheating, they deal, again, with completely different topics. One is dealing with transaction that is monetary. The other one is talking about transaction that's in communication, and not insulting someone, not saying something you don't mean, and so on. What we're going to look at today is how all of this has to do with self-integrity. It's very interesting that a lot of this parsha, after I get to write the whole sequence of everything that goes into wonders and a lot of stuff that doesn't go into wonders, because there's not enough room in 16 pages. So sometimes when you go to the Patreon, patreon.com/galeinai, GALEINAI, you will encounter more material than we were able to put into the wonders. But this is second reading, so it's in there. But a lot of the topics this week are connected to integrity. We're going to see this tomorrow again, and there's a story that I'm not going to have time today for, but hopefully during the rest of the week we'll relate. So, on this verse, you shall not cheat one another, and here we're talking about the speech type, the transaction that is communication. But fear your God, for I am Avai your God. Rebunim of Shischa. He's the great disciple of the Holy Yid, the Yehudi Kadosh, who was the disciple of the seer of Lublin, and they were instrumental in bringing the Hasidic movement to Poland. So he said like this: the intent is that a person should not cheat himself of his own truth. That's not what the verse says. The verse says don't cheat someone else. How did he get to this? So he says, for the letter ayin in the word another, don't cheat another. Another in Hebrew here is amito. Amito, but it's written with an ayin. If I would speak maybe more pronounced Hebrew, I would say amito. Like the ayin would be guttural. You'd hear it. So the ayin can be exchanged with the letter aleph, transforming it into the word amito with an aleph, which means his truth. So what is the verse saying? It says, you shall not cheat your truth. Don't cheat yourself of your truth. Now what is the... So really the word here, truth, is... Because amito, that's how we would translate it as truth. But really the way to say it in English would be, don't cheat yourself of your integrity. You have to be... A person has to be whole in the sense of being true to himself. You have to have self-integrity. Now, this is a very deep thing, because what is he saying here? He didn't just say this out of nowhere. There's a very interesting story that it goes along with this. And listen to how the story explains it. And the story is probably the source of the way this teaching was written down. Once Rebunim of Shischa came to the study hall, and he found the Hasidim, his disciples, sitting and engaged in discussions about Hasidut. He asked him, tell me, what is a Chassid? What is someone who is a Chassid? Now, a Chassid is not a new word. It didn't come into the world in the 17th or 18th century. It's been around since the beginning of Hebrew. And it appears in the Bible many times. What is a Chassid? The sages talked a lot about this. They said Adam was a Chassid because Adam went too far. What happened with Adam? Adam was told, don't eat from the tree. What did he tell Eve? Don't even touch the tree. That is the definition of a chassid, someone who goes beyond the letter of the law. So that's what they answered. He asked them, what is a chassid? And they said, a chassid is someone who goes beyond the letter of the law. Rebunim responded positively and said, that is exactly what I meant you to say. And then he explained, it is written in the Torah, you shall not cheat one another. This is the measured requirement of the law. But going beyond the letter of the law requires that one should not cheat himself either. So what is he saying here? He's saying the Torah requires that I not cheat someone else. But if I'm a chassid and I'm worried about going beyond the letter of the law, but understanding the spirit of the law, I have to also be careful not to cheat myself. What does it mean to cheat myself? What is that? What would that even mean? How would I cheat myself? So, in the Pshischa dynasty, and this reached its apex in the time of Reb Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, the Kotsk Rebbe. He's very famous. It was a sense of authenticity. In other words, not to do things, even religious things, that don't have a basis, right? Somebody decides that he wants to take on some kind of special chumrah, we call it, some kind of special stringency that he takes upon himself. To be authentic means not to take this upon myself because someone else did, be they as great as they might be. But to be authentic is to act the way that I am suited to act. And if this is not me, I shouldn't do it. The story I was going to tell you is about Reb Shmulki of Zvil. And he was famous for this, even though he didn't come from that lineage at all. But this spread throughout the Hasidic movement after the time of the Kotzker Rebbe became very famous, this idea that a person should not cheat his own self-integrity, meaning, it doesn't mean go do whatever you want. It means you have to be true to yourself in the sense of knowing where you really stand and what you're really capable of. And don't cheat yourself. Don't lie to yourself that you're at a higher level that you're not, or the opposite. Don't be too self-critical to not know that you can do great things, assuming that because you should be humble and meek, you shouldn't. That's not true either. So Reb Shmulki of Zvil will say one small story. He had a helper that was with him all the time, and he would take the bus every morning to the Western Wall. And one time when he was waiting for the bus, it was early in the morning. There was no congestion or anything like that. There was plenty of room to sit at the bus stop, but he sat on the floor, on the sidewalk. And his helper saw that he was sitting on the sidewalk, so he also sat there. So Reb Shmulki said to him, "Do you hold by this?" Which means, do you think that this is something that's necessary for you to sit on the sidewalk? Why are you sitting on the sidewalk? Just because I'm sitting on the sidewalk? I have my own reasons. You should probably go sit. He didn't tell him what to do. He just said, you have to think about whether this is really you. You have to live according to the integrity of who you are. Now, there's a lot more to say about this, and unfortunately we don't have time and I have to leave. So I refer you to the article that go up on Patreon, and hope to see you again tomorrow. All the best.